That's it. It's a bit underwhelming. I mean, the whole one shot of those things grabbing you under isn't underwhelming. But I thought I would at least have a fight with him after. So I would say about the final boss fight wasn't really that great in Executioner, but the other bosses fights before him, they were all great. I do like the fact that he had a one-shot move that made things more tense. But overall, I would say I only really have one or two gripes with regards to Executioner. Um, One being the final boss was kind of, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it wasn't that overly complicated if you knew how to, because you didn't have to fight him. But and because I'm not playing it on hard mode, so it's a good fight, but the fact that it's a QTE fight kind of takes away from the enjoyment of actually combat itself. So I would say, yeah, um, general game is 7.9 to about 8.2. But with regard to this, since I found five things that were really good about the game and maybe three that were wrong with the executioner. I'm saying I'm up by two general all around with regards to the DLC and the general game combined together. Separate, I'll always have the general game at 7.9 to about an 8.2, but together, I'm in the eights now. I'm at an 8.1 with regards to the game. Personally, 8.1, and more than 8.1, I'm in like a 8.3. No, 8.4 with regards to the overall experience of both the Executioner and the Evil Within. So now I gotta check out the next two DLCs, and I'm gonna start with the assignment, and that one might take a while, but I'll do that on a separate playthrough. So this one is just going to be for Executioner. What I thought of Executioner, different boss fights. They were all unique. They were all different. They were all very good. They were all difficult, except for the last fight, which kind of, when you include one-shots in QTE events, it kind of takes away from enjoyment of combat itself. It was interesting and different from the others, I could say that. But there's only real three problems that was wrong with the execution. That's it. But there were more. There were like five or six that were good about the execution as well. One being executions, two being the different atmosphere for different boss fights, three being the different fight styles for each bosses, and different methods of how you gotta think and outthink your enemies. Four being I think they improved like the sound with regards to the DLCs, but they didn't improve it on the original game. Five being the different arsenals, things that you could use to kill your enemies, and maybe the six will be the overall experience itself with regards to the game. So I only really found like three things that were wrong with the executioner and about five or six that was good about it. So it was pretty good damn DLC as an additive towards the general evil within. Like if you just want to run around and kill shit, the executioner is pretty damn good just for the fun of it, as an additive for added mode, because what the executioner was definitely a mode more than, rather than a continuing of a story. So as an added mode, it was good. It wasn't great, but it was very good. So I'll just skip this and I'll stop the video. I'll upload this. And also, why I say it's a 6, not really 5 or 6. I gave it like said I gave it 5 to 6 points, but generally it really is a solid 6. 6 solid things I found good about it. Because the fact, you could even say 7, but I say 6 solid things. Now that I think about it. Because the game wasn't short. The game mode wasn't short. It was a pretty long game mode for a game mode. Whether you have Resident Evil, you play as Hunk or you play as Beat the Clock or something like that. Those are all short game modes. As a game mode, the Executioner had a small little story, and it was pretty. It had content in it with regards to cutscenes, and it had the same thing. Beat your best score. And it was simply kind of run and gun type of mode, kind of like when you're playing different DLC added modes in Resident Evil. But here it felt much longer than those. So even though it felt like a small little story, it felt more like a mode that had story in it. So it was longer than I expected for a game mode. Because you really couldn't say it was a story. It felt more like a mode, but it was longer than I expected for like a game mode. Or even if it was a story, it was longer than I expected for even a game story, which felt more like a mode than a story. So I'm gonna give it a solid 6 more, which means I'm now up to a 8.2 general game and DLCs of the Executioner combined. And then I'll get the overall game in conjunction with the Executioner DLC up to like a 8.4 now, or 8.5. So yeah, my original assessment of the Evil Within was 8, and overall was 8.5, but then I dropped it down based on reval, but now I'm back up to the 8.2. Simply because of the mode, the Executioner, which is pretty damn good, but not great. Certain parts were very boring. But if you were to subtract the boring part, or if you were to give it another point for certain things being boring, it still would be in the 8s overall if you were to combine it with the general game itself. But by itself, you were to think about it from 0 going on all the way up, where would it be? 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 4 out of 10. I would say this would be a 6 out of 10, a 5 or a 6 out of 10, because I didn't feel bored playing this at all. In fact, it wasn't boring in the slightest, because the whole point of it was to execute as much enemies as you could find. The most boring part of this game is running through corridors looking to kill enemies. That's all. And that wasn't that boring at all. So I would say at bare minimum this is like a 5 out of 10 as a DLC. And at maximum I would say it would be like a 6 out of 10. So generally I'm going with the 6 out of 10. Which means it did more than the average DLC content that's attached to the word game mode, because this didn't feel like a continuation of the Evil Within story. It felt like a mode attached to a story that's within the Evil Within. So as a mode, it did a job as a mode. So I got it at 6 out of 10. So it did pretty good. So that's it for the Executioner. I'm gonna go on to the Assignment. I'll probably do that on PlayStation if my network isn't acting up on for a stream, which it probably is going to act up the moment I do the assignment, but I'm going to try to do it anyway. Should you, like, if you want to buy each of these DLCs separate, would Executioner be the one that you would buy first? I don't know yet, because I don't know how assignment is going to play out, and I don't know how the consequence is going to play out. For all I know, the assignment or consequence could be better than Executioner, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see. That's it for this one. And this is also what I like, why I say it's a general 6 out of 10 at bare minimum. I would say at bare minimum, or even at maximum, it's a 6 out of 10. You can't get below that. You can't put this as a 5 out of 10, which means it's average. It's slightly above average because every time you beat either the general game or mode, you unlock a lot of stuff, especially in Evil Within. They could have just give you a couple of things, but as you go along in this general mode for the Executioner, each time you beat a boss, you unlock a special weapon. And once you beat the game, the entire game itself, you unlock these other things as well. So you get to have all the special weapons from beating each boss. And when you finish the game, you get to unlock various different features. So when you play it again, you'll be able to use those special features and those collectibles and those perks in once you play it a second time. So at bare minimum, I would say this is a 6 out of 10, which means it did what it was supposed to did its job. It wasn't average as a mode would be. When someone says a mode is average, it felt average, but it also felt slightly above average for its fun factor and it's how it did getting special weapons and how it did certain things. So good enough. It did its job and it was fun. I liked it. I just need to see if the the assignment or the consequence are better than this for this to be considered the one you would purchase above those other two. So that's it for this video.